This episode of Raiders Fan Radio is brought to you by DeadPiratesSports.com. That's Raider gear for the Raider family. Check out DeadPiratesSports.com. Raiders Fan Radio. You're listening to Sonny and Murf from the Dago Dungeon. That's right, a podcast by Raiders fans for Raiders fans, the only fans that matter.
Touchdown! Harry Stabler goes all the way!
We miss you, we love you, and we'll see you in the Hall of Fame.
When you have great coaches, then after you have great coaches, you get great players. You have a great organization, and you tell them one thing. Just win, baby. I love this team. I think this team can win.
All right, Raider Nation, welcome into episode number 65 of Raiders Fan Radio. This is the Mickey Marvin episode, drafted in the fourth round of the 1977 draft out of Tennessee with 120 regular season games with the Raiders. Murf, how you doing today?
Sonny, I'm doing fantastic. I'm going to reserve my emotion on the top end of the show because you're going to hear after our interview, there's plenty of emotion going on after at the end of the show. So as of right now, I'm just going to say, Sonny, I'm doing great. I'm not wound up or anxious. Everything is just lovely. I'm having a great time and excited to be here in the Dago Dungeon South.
There you go. So we're breaking format today. We're not going to have our typical show. Actually, for the next coming weeks, we have some different things we're going on. We got another guest coming on next week. That'll probably be a standalone show, maybe talk about some free agency a little bit. And then in 2 weeks from now, we're trying to set up a professional, friendly discussion between one of the guys who's really pro Vegas, who's out there, not so much that he hates Oakland, but that he's just really excited about the Vegas thing. And he knows a lot about what's going on in Vegas. And also we're going to talk to a guy who's maybe not so happy about Vegas or not so pro Vegas. And he knows a lot about maybe why Vegas isn't going to happen and all that kind of stuff. So we're working on some different things over the next coming weeks for Raiders Fan Radio for the podcast here. But this week, Murph, we spent about 45 minutes talking to one Phil Villapiano. And, man, we were extremely blessed to talk to him. We tried to hold back our Raider fanboy as long as we could when we talked to Phil. But after the interview, the fanboy just came out. And we couldn't help it. And so one more thing real quick, DeadPiratesSports.com as of February 5th is unveiling loot boxes. Pretty stinking cool. What you can do is there's a different price tier model, but you pay $30 or $60 or $100 and you get gear. And I think the highest tier is guaranteed autographed memorabilia from the Raiders. Every month is something different. Jeff Haskins is the owner of DeadPiratesSports.com. Check him out on Facebook. He's on Facebook, and I think he's on Twitter as well. So really cool that Jeff's doing that, and also really cool that Phil joined our show. And we will play that interview for you right meow. All right, Raider Nation, as we stated, we are blessed with the one who wear number 41 when the Raiders won their first one. That's right, Mr. Phil Villapiano joins the show. Phil, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm out in Reno, Nevada, looking out the window. It's beautiful. I don't know if you guys have ever been to Reno. It's gorgeous. And I come out here for the Super Bowl every year. Conrad Dobler and I do a little show at Glenn Carano's Silver Legacy Hotel, and we have a ball. And it's a big weekend here in Reno, and I'm enjoying it. That's what we're doing this morning.
How long have you been going on to Reno for, Phil, for the Super Bowls?
Probably 25 years or so.
How'd that start?
We've kind of lost track. I remember coming here. I'm looking out the window, and you could see Mount Rose, which is this gigantic mountain out here, right? And I came out here when I used to be able to ski. So I don't ski anymore, but that's how long ago we used to come out here. And it's like 60 degrees down below and up the top of the mountain. It's like, snow and stuff. So it's really cool out here.
Well, Murf had an uncle who lived out in Reno for a lot of years, who was a big Raiders fan, and in fact grew up watching you, which shaped our Raiders fandom, if you will. So I'll let Murf jump in here.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Phil, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. Yeah, my uncle Murf was one of your biggest fans, and Sonny and I grew up in the Bay Area of California in San Jose, and where our whole family grew up. But my uncle Murf moved on to Reno, and it's very surreal to hear you be in Reno and talk about Reno, and my uncle Murf just brings back so many memories and so many stories, about the Raider teams of the 70s. Sonny and I, we're old enough of a generation that we didn't grow up with the internet and things like that. So the stories of the Raiders were given to us by Sonny's dad and by my uncle Murf. And so tell us about that first Super Bowl win. It's Super Bowl week. Tell us about that first win. Describe what that first Super Bowl was like for you in '76 when you guys knocked off the Vikings.
Well, it was crazy. It was coming. So I think 71 was my rookie year. And I think in 1970, the Raiders were so-so. And then I remember they drafted me and Jack Tatum, and we were 1-2, and we got to start, and it was pretty cool. And they were putting together a team. So then 71, we make the playoffs. 72, we make the playoffs. 73, we make the playoffs. We probably went to the championship game. And then we did that, I think, 4 years in a row. Get to the championship game and losing. So by the time we got to 76, we were ready to win, and it was a business trip. We went down to the Super Bowl was in the Rose Bowl that year, so we went down to L.A. and they put us up in a Marriott. But I mean, it was a team that we've had enough of losing, and we were ready to win, and it was just so much fun to be a part of that, and build it. We built it. And then we did it, and we won it, and that was so cool. So if anybody's ever played in the NFL, that's all you think about. First of all you think about is winning. Then you think about making the playoffs. Then you think about doing good in the playoffs. Then you think about getting to the Super Bowl. And then, like John Madden said, this will be the single biggest event in any of your lives as long as you win. And we won. Because if you lose, forget about it. You know what I mean? So we got ourselves a win in 76, and then in 77 we should have done it again. A terrible call over there in Denver, and we probably, and then in fact maybe even 75 and 74. We should have had a bunch of them, but at least in my career I got one.
Was that the most front? You bring up the Rob Lytle fumble play, and we've talked about that play on our show before. We've kind of highlighted that. Was that the most disappointing? Nowadays in modern day, Raider fandom, everybody refers back to the Tuck rule and all that. But I think it's almost glossed over how devastating that missed call was, and especially when the officials came back and really told you guys after the fact that they blew it. Right? Was that the toughest call that ever went against you in your career?
Unbelievable. Well, I don't know if that was the toughest one. That might be immaculate reception. That was another crazy one that went against us. But that in Denver, we were the better team. We didn't play that well that day, but anyway, we played well enough to win. And he fumbled. It was like it was obvious to everybody. He fumbled out in the field, and Jack Tatum picks it up. He's going the other way, and they gave it back to him, similar to what happened last week when what was that with the Patriots, when the ball what was that? I love that linebacker. That guy got the
Miles Jack.
Yeah, what a player he is. He's going the other way for a touchdown, and they give it back to him, and then the Patriots win the game. It's crazy, but hey, that stuff happens in football, and you just you get some good ones and you get some bad ones, and that was a bad one for us.
So, Phil, the reason for a lot of the success that you all had was the physicality that you all played with on defense. And, you've been quoted as saying, you love to tackle and you would tailor your tackling based on what your opponent didn't like. If they didn't like to be hit high, you'd hit them high. If they didn't like to be hit low, you hit them low. Was with your ability to kind of tailor your game, do you think that your game would translate to today?
Well, I don't know. I think, it's still a game of blocking and tackling, as everybody says. And that sounds very simple, but that's what it is. We'll take a look at this, the Super Bowl tomorrow, and those guys are going to have to block, and they're going to have to tackle. And so that really hasn't changed. I think with, when I got in the league, I got pretty lucky because, 225-pound linebackers, that's what people wanted back then, because you could run and you could take on a block or two. So, I hit it right. I think now if I played, I'd be a safety man, just because the game has changed so much if I was fast enough. So I like at the end of our career, I remember Teddy Hendricks and I one time, they took us out of the game and put in two defensive backs. And Hendricks grabbed my hand and like we were walking off the field like we were two gay guys. You know what I mean? Because they took us out of the game. We were so pissed. And he went up to Don Shinnick, and we gave him the stare. But it was changing even back in the 80s, And now, look, you got maybe one linebacker plays the game and everybody else is a defensive back. So, my tackling ability would still hold up, but I would have to be able to cover. So it's more of a cover game now. And even like tomorrow, there's going to be an under and an over to this game, and I see it going over because it's a scoring, passing football game nowadays.
What do you think of it when you talk to your peers and your former teammates and guys that you came up playing with? What is the feeling of your era of player when you watch the NFL now? Is it do you recognize it's the same game? Does it feel the same to you? Do you enjoy it as much?
Yeah, I do, and that's a great question. And a lot of people ask that, and a lot of people say, "Oh man, they're putting skirts on the quarterbacks and stuff like that." Well, I just tell people, you've never been out there. You have no clue how nasty and rough that game is. It is still. It hurts, man. You wake up the day after a game, you are hurting, and it's just the way football is. But yeah, it's changed. It's kind of changed with society. Look at society. Look at the cell phones and the way cars look nowadays. So it's all changed. But I think football has grown. I like it. I still love to watch it. There's nothing I would rather do than Sunday afternoon have a couple beers and watch football. But it's changed like everything else has changed. But I like it, and I think the NFL. Everybody keeps saying, yeah, 70s football. 60s, 60s I think was kind of boring. 70s when it was wide open, and you could throw the ball, but it was a little. I think it was a little fiercer. The rules. You could do a lot more out there and get away with it than you can nowadays. But it's just the way it is, and nobody. These people are making so much money nowadays. An injury in my day wasn't as bad as an injury today. You know what I mean? Like you lose one of your superstars. Oh my God! The NFL doesn't like that. But in our day, everybody was expendable. Everybody just beat each other up, and people like that. That was kind of a fun football to watch. Now it's a little more finesse and all the the replays and the referees' calls and stuff. Oh my God, they hardly miss anything. Talked about Rob Lytle's fumble. That wouldn't even have been questioned.
Right.
But nowadays, how about that one play when Pittsburgh, the guy catches the ball and goes in the end zone, and the referee calls a touchdown to win the game against the Patriots, and they took it away from him because the refs took it away. I was like, are you kidding me? So, yeah, hey, that's the way it is, and some calls are going to go for you. Some are going to go against you, but it's changed. It's a different game, but it's the same game.
You know, you mentioned how people look back at the time of the 70s and about it being fun. And I think no team defines the fun of football better than what the Raiders did and your teams did of the 70s. And when hearing those stories back when I was a kid, you guys were almost like superheroes to me because everyone had a nickname and you guys had the best nicknames, you know, for you know, whether it's Twos or Dr. Death and Assassin and all the wonderful nicknames, including yours, which was Foo. You want to tell us how the nickname Foo came about?
Yeah, that's a crazy one. I never thought that would happen, but I was I mean, I thought I could have nicknames, but not Foo. But Dwayne Benson, who was a linebacker, and we what the Raiders used to do after all your home games, they throw a big party over at this hotel, and you know, and I guess you were allowed to bring 4 guests, so it was really a good thing for the families and all that. So I go over there and I'm a rookie, and Dwayne Benson, who was a linebacker, also a good guy, and when I drink, my eyes get slanty, you know, and Dwayne looked at me and he goes, "Your name's not Phil. Your name's Foo. Look at your eyes." Anyway, it stuck. Why that stuck, I don't know. But if anybody calls me Foo, I know they're a Raider. I know they're in the NFL. You know, if I'm walking through an airport, somebody goes, "Hey, Foo," I know that guy's been in the NFL. That was my name. And then, you know, you go to a few Pro Bowl games, and then the other guys from the other teams start calling you Foo. And it grew. But yeah, it's just kind of a goofy name, like the Twos, and like Kickham. You know how Ted Hendricks got his name Kickham?
No.
We're playing. We're in practice one day, and he kicks Murf Hubbard in the head, and he gets the name Kickham. Ted, kick him in the head, Ted.
Kick him in the head, Ted.
So kick him in the head, Ted. You know, but he also had the Stork, and the Stork was more of his college name. But anybody that calls him Kickham, you know, they're in the NFL.
Well, Phil, you know, thanks again for joining us here on the show. I'm got one more for you, and then turn you back over to Sonny here. But I did want to ask you about, you know, so many of those players that you played with have been considered for the Hall of Fame and have gone on to become members of the Hall of Fame. And recently, your daughter Andrea started a movement to get you considered for the Hall of Fame. And of course, we here at Raiders Fan Radio completely support it, and we want to help get that message out. But what does that mean to you as a, you know, now that, you know, you can look back on your career and reflect back on a life in football? What does that mean to you? Not only the response of course, Raider Nation, but really the response of NFL fan in general to kind of support this going forward?
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up. And yeah, my daughter and a few friends, you know, we were sitting around one day and they said, "Phil, you know, whatever happened, why aren't you in the Hall of Fame?" Well, I never thought too much about it. I got my name, you know, when I became eligible, they brought me up. I got I got to the final round way back when, and it just kind of left my mind. Every year I watch the guy, and it's like there's nothing better than that. I think you got the Super Bowl, and then you got the Hall of Fame. It's even higher for a player to even be considered in that world. That's kind of what you know you worked your whole life for. So hey, my daughter got started. And, she got a website. I can't believe what's going on the last month or so since I got on that list. It's crazy, and it gets bigger and bigger. And the Raider Nation is behind it all the way. I love that, and I think it's Phil Villapiano for the Hall of Fame website, or what's that called? Facebook.
It's a Facebook group. Yeah, it's a Facebook group on there.
It's crazy. And I can't tell you, Murf and Sonny, how many people from around the country are posting up there and saying such nice things. It humbles you, you know. It's really, really a crazy, great thing. It just, even to be brought up is wonderful. If I get in, wonderful. If I don't, it's been fun, you know, and it will be fun. But that, you know, to a football player, that's a big deal. That's a real big deal.
the website, it's the Facebook group, Phil Villapiano Foo for the Hall of Fame. It's up to 2,500 members at this point, and I think it's only been around for a month. So kudos to Andrea for getting that going, and she actually helped us set up this interview as well. So, Phil.
Yes, Sonny, I think she fell in love with you.
Well, I appreciate it.
Because she's called me 100 times, Dad, you better get out of bed. Dad, you can't sleep. You're like, Dad, turn on your phone. Dad.
Hey, we may hire her. We may hire her to bring her on the show. That's good.
Oh, my God. Hey, be careful what you ask for, man. She's good.
Hey, me and Murf are both Italian, so you know how those Italian ladies get. You know what I'm saying?
Beautiful. Murf is Italian. Murf sounds a little Irish to me.
My mom, Sonny, his dad and my mom are brother and sister, and my mom married an Irishman, so I'm a half Mick, half Sicilian. Yeah.
There you go.
We like half of them.
Good mix. Yeah, good mix. I like that.
So Phil, you're traded to Buffalo. You spend the last 4 years of your career in Buffalo. However, at least from my perspective, I never think of you as a Buffalo Bill. What happened with that trade? Why were you traded when you were one of the guys? You were one of the nicknames. You were one of the studs of that Raider team. What happened with that trade to Buffalo?
Well, I think you got to look back. We've all learned you don't mess with Al Davis. And it all started about 2 years, I'd say probably 78, when there was about 16 of us playing golf, and we came in, and the golf pro was on the steps, and we used to go in and drink beers and play dice. And we were on our way in, and the golf pro comes out, and he goes, "You guys are moving to L.A." And I looked at Gene Upshaw, who was with us that day, and I said, "Uppy," because he's our captain. And he goes, "What?" So we went in, and there was Al Davis on television announcing to the world that we're moving to L.A. And we could not believe it. So anyway, we had our beers. We went back to Dave Dolly's house. Double D was his nickname, for a barbecue. The Oakland Tribune found out where everybody was. So they called. And now I'm the last guy to get interviewed. And I had a few beers. And I'm very loyal to Oakland and to the nation. And I said, this is disgusting. I know Al Davis, it's all about money to him. We should never leave Oakland. This is the greatest place in the world. So I say all this kind of stuff. And the next day the headline was, Villapiano won't go.
Oh, wow.
And I remember coming home that day, and my wife says, "You're gone." And I said, "What do you mean I'm gone? Look at this." And there it was. Villapiano won't go. So anyway, Al doesn't say a word about it. 2 years later, I'm back in New Jersey. Back in those days, I was working for a steamship line in the off season. I'm still in transportation, so I was trying to learn a different career. So anyway, I come in. I took the kids to church. I come in the house, and my ex-wife Patty goes, "Al's on the phone." I said, "Al's on the phone," and I picked up the phone, and Mr. Davis said to me, "Hey Phil, how's that? How you doing?" I said, "I'm doing great." He goes, "What are you weighing?" I said, "I'm about 230. Now I'm playing in the middle." I said, "I'm up to about 230. He said, "Oh, that's great." He goes, "How's that knee?" I said, "The knee is fine. It's been fine for a couple of years. Don't worry about the knee." I said, "What's up?" He says, "Look, Freddie went to Canada. Cliff's got this, that." He says, "We need another wide receiver." And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I want to ask you about a guy. What do you think about Bob Chandler?" I said, "Bob Chandler from Buffalo?" I said, "Al, I played in a couple Pro Bowl games with him. This guy's a player. Matter of fact, he reminds me of Freddie. He's got moves like Freddie. He runs like Freddie. He's smart, too. Really good player, Al." And he goes, "Yeah, that's what I was thinking." He said, "But let me ask you, you think you'll get along with our guys? I can't bring anybody onto this team that can't get along." And I said, "Al, I think Bob Chandler would be wonderful, but you're going to have to give up somebody pretty good to get him." He goes, "Yeah, you." And I go, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, you. You didn't want to go to L.A., did you?" And he got me.
Holy
Don't
crap.
ever say anything. 2 years he harbored that inside, and then he stuck it to me.
And he
Oh,
called
God.
you up to ask you how you felt about him, got the information first, and then was going to use you to get him.
Exactly.
Wow.
I fell for that hook, line, and sinker. So then, because I remembered when, Villapiano will go. So then I tried to sell myself back, and then I stopped, and I said, Al, am I gone? He goes, you're gone. So that was it. 2 minutes later, Chuck Knox called me up, and I was a Buffalo Bill. And I'm telling you, I had 4 fun years up there, but nothing like Oakland. I mean, Oakland was, 9 years out there in the 70s was just, that was the height of football, man. You couldn't have been with a better team at a better time, better coaches, better management, better teammates. It was all perfect. So, 9 years is a good run when you're winning every year. It was pretty cool.
So how did the relationship with Al, once you retired from football in '83, did you ever try to reach back out to Davis? Was that relationship maybe ever mended or improved, or did it just kind of stay like that?
Oh, yeah, but no, there was nothing the matter with our relationship. He just traded me. And,
Just
when
business.
you're around the NFL, that happens. It was good for me. I got 4 more years, and it was good for the Raiders. They got a really good player. No, Al and I were fine right to the end. I saw. I mean, I would go out to Oakland a couple of times a year and actually catch the team on the road whenever they came back east. And I always went to see Al and his wife Caroli, beautiful people. Mark Davis, like a younger brother to me. So the Davises and the Villapianos are. That was no problem. That was a business decision. I got it, and that's just the way it was. So there wasn't a problem. It was a pretty funny story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
that's pretty good insight on our end. It's good insight to how Davis would operate. And so
he
now,
was tough, man.
So now with the Raiders moving to Vegas, what are your thoughts around that?
Well, it's another business decision, and I'm all in. And to go from Newark to Vegas is pretty easy. The two they got flights all day long, so I'm kind of looking forward to a little different. Like we just talked about it before. Football's changed. Vegas. There's no other team that could go to Vegas, but the Raiders. I think they belong there. I feel bad for Oakland, the city of Oakland, but they got all the chances in the world to keep the Raiders there, and nobody stepped up except the day before they're announcing they're going to leave. The mayor finally opened her mouth, but not a big deal. I think it's going to be another chapter. I think it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. But I hope they get another Super Bowl in the next 2 years when they're still back in Oakland. But hey, it's a business decision. And look, nowadays, when the Raiders were in L.A., the people from Oakland went down there to watch the games. And then when the people from L.A. came up to Oakland to watch the games, now you just go across the mountains and you go to Vegas. So the nation's still alive. And the people from Idaho and the people from New Mexico and Nevada and Utah, I mean, this is all fresh Raider Nation. They could go right down to Vegas and watch them play. It's going to be pretty cool.
Do you think if Al was alive today, he would be in love with this move by Mark Davis moving to Vegas?
Absolutely. Al loved Vegas. And, we as Raiders, whenever we went to Vegas to go and have fun, all we had to do was call Al. You wouldn't talk to Al, but everything would be set up. He was Mr. Vegas. And I think, he probably planted the seed in Mark's head. And Mark just pulled it off. But I think it's great. I think Al would definitely go along with it.
Phil, you've been very involved in charity work over the years, the Foundation to Save the Jersey Shore, Muscular Dystrophy Association. Back in 2002, you got the Jimmy V Don't Ever Give Up Award. You had the Phil Villapiano Field of Hope Gala. And recently you've been speaking out about CTE, not having kids playing contact football under the age of 14. What keeps you going with all that? That's a lot to be involved with. Why is giving back important to you?
Well, that's a good question, and I don't know. I think that comes from my mother and my father. They were that type of people, and they put it in me. And I think anybody that can, and everybody can, but people don't think they can. But, what I mean by everybody you can, I got a name, so I'm an NFL guy. And in this crazy country of ours, that means something. So I use that to help wherever I can. And I like that. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel like, a football player or an athlete or, a politician or a rich person, or anybody just giving back. If you do it, it makes you feel great, and you never have a bad day, and that's it makes me feel good. So I do it, and wherever I see a hole, I try and fill it. I'm very involved in cancer right now. I lost a wife to cancer, and that disease stinks, and I hate it, and that's one of my new big things. So anyway, I just keep going. Whatever, kind of like wherever people need me. And, I don't like CTE. I was with Nick Bonacani a couple weeks ago in New York. We launched, we actually gave it a name, flag football name. So hey, why not play flag football? Why not let the kids' brains mature a little bit before they start hitting? And the doctors that I was with in New York, and I've been involved with in the concussion industry here, they talk about, hey, as your bones are growing, so is your brains. Give it a little more time before you start hitting. So I like that idea, and I think flag football is a fun thing. And I don't know if anybody's ever played it. I remember in 8th grade we played it. I loved it. I loved it as much as tackle football. So I'm all in for that. I'm going, and that's one of my things that, I'm preaching right now. Let the kids get a little bit older. Nothing the matter with football. Nothing the matter with hitting. Just give it a couple more years.
It's an interesting approach. The program's called Flag Football Under 14, launched by the Concussion Legacy Foundation. And Phil, you often hear people say, well, don't play football because it's a bad game, you'll get hurt. And that's not your perspective. You're saying play football, but just play it safer up until this age, right?
Yeah, of course. And even, it's so much better nowadays with the equipment, rules, and the coaches. I think, I like the flag football. I like to let the kids get a little bit older, but definitely don't stop football. There's no better game in the whole world. It teaches us so much about life, and it teaches so much about hard work, and it teaches so much about, friendship and teamwork and all that great stuff football teaches you. And the reason it's, let's compare it to baseball or basketball or soccer. I mean, when you're out there and at any given play, your career could end. You're playing, it's kind of cool. You're always on the edge of the cliff when you're playing football. So that's the greatness of that game. And I don't want nothing to happen to that beautiful game. It's evolved into an even better game than it used to be. And no, let's keep football around. Let's just make it a little bit safer. That's all.
Phil, I want to get you out of here really quick, but just a couple more questions here. 4 years in a row, the Raiders were the runner-up in the AFC Championship game. Oh no, I'm sorry. 4 out of 5 years you played in it, and the one year you won it was against you won and went to the Vikings and stuff like that. 2 years in a row you lost to the Steelers, and we all know about the Chiefs, how much we hate them, but how big of a rival was the Steelers in the 70s for the Raiders? And do you kind of still look at the Steelers with a little bit of, vitriol these days?
Well, it was a beautiful rivalry, and it came out of the blue. Here we were, when I first went to the Raiders, you had to hate the Chiefs number one. You had to hate the Broncos, number two. You had to hate the Chargers, number three. And then all of a sudden, you hate the Dolphins, number four. And then all of a sudden, this Pittsburgh team comes around, and I think they kind of liked to play like the Raiders, or they tried to play like the Raiders, and I saw that they were pretty nasty, and it's a very good defense. Good old Franco Harris, Rocky Pryor, Terry Bradshaw, Swan and Stallworth and Frankie Lewis. And, they had great players everywhere, and they played rough football. So all of a sudden, it was kind of like, hey, man, you guys are starting to act like us. We need to kick your little asses. And then it started, and it got nasty, and it got nasty quick. And it was just fun to play those guys. And then they ended up, winning their division. We ended up winning ours. So it was inevitable. Every year we were going to end up against the Steelers, and we did. And we had some, we played some horrible playoff games against those guys. We just, it would be like, like Tennessee Titans going into New England this year, and they just going in and laid an egg, in the playoff game. And we didn't play our best football, and for some reason, in that championship game 2 years in a row to the Steelers, and then we finally got them. So that it was good. But hey, it was fun. It was fun. It was I never got goosebumps on my arms like I did when I think it was 75. We went back there. It was freezing cold in Pittsburgh, and I come out of the locker room, and people were booing so bad. I saw my arms; they got goosebumps on my arms. I was so excited. I couldn't wait to go and hit somebody. That's the way I loved. I could tell when I was ready to play. Like I never forget. One time, it was about my third or fourth year in the league, and now we're going to play in Arrowhead Stadium, and we drove to. It was like, oh my God, am I really ready to play today? I never forget. I was on the bus, and we drove by, and you could look inside the stadium from the where the buses drove in, and I saw the football field, and I got the goosebumps. I knew I was ready to play. You see, goofy things like that it lets you know that you got a great game coming that day. Against the Steelers, against the Chiefs. Man, those are the games I like to play in.
We have another uncle. We call him Uncle Mosh on our show, and he grew up in the Bay Area in the 70s as a Raider fan as well. And his most hated team out of all the teams is the Pittsburgh Steelers because of that rivalry back then. And when history looks back on those teams, the Raiders, I feel, are kind of unfairly categorized just because of the physicality that you all played. But you touched on something about the Steelers, that they played the same way as well, but nobody ever throws out any derogatory terms about the Steelers defense. It's always about the Raiders defense. Does that bug you? Does that bug you as the player that we're actually in it like it bugs us as fans?
Well, no, and it shouldn't bug you, man. That's a compliment. It's great when people talk about how nasty we were and how we played the game, and we did it. And I'm telling you, we won a lot of games because our reputation, not because we played so well that day, but we going in teams. Sometimes the teams would just quit. They didn't even want to play us, and that was good. We get the afternoon off. Just get away and get out of there. And no, we loved that. And Al Davis loved the mystique, the nastiness. John Madden loved the nastiness. We as players loved the nastiness, and we also wore black. And we're the only one in the league wearing black at the time. And that it all worked together. It worked for us, and we loved it. So no nation, I want the Raider Nation to know when they talk about us being nasty, that's a compliment.
Do you think that can happen again in today's game, Phil? Like can a team rise up to that level of intimidation that the Raiders were? Maybe the Patriots, with all of their, winning ways, teams come in, they might feel that intimidation. But, we all know the Raiders were tough and grimy and would, poke your eyes in the huddle and stuff like that. Can a team, let alone the Raiders, meet that level of intimidation again as far as physical play, or is it just even across the playing field now?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a really good question. And I really don't think so. I just think, the teams are never together like we were in those days. I mean, we had the same starting guys for 9 years in a row.
Yeah,
and then when we finally lost in '79, Al traded everybody. And it was goofy to think that you knew. I mean, I knew John Matusak was going to be right next to me as long as we were playing, and Jack Tatum was going to be right behind me, and George Atkinson. So, and Teddy Hendricks, I'd be looking across at him. It was like you knew that. And I guess because you were together so long, you could grow that reputation. And now, these players, you get pretty good, and all of a sudden you're a free agent, you're gone. So it just doesn't. I don't see it. I don't see, even though, you try. The Eagles right now are trying to be a nasty defense, and we'll see them tomorrow. And I think they're pretty good. But no sooner they get good, then half the team will be gone. So I don't think it's ever going to work like that again. That was an era where, there's people all over the country can name all 11 starters on our defense, and on the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, and on the Miami Dolphins no-name defense. But that's the way it was because the guys came back year after year. Nowadays, it's a little bit different. And that's, we talked about the game being different, and that's one of the things that's different. There's, you just don't see 11 guys stick around like they used to.
And not to mention the level of trust and knowing how your guy next to you plays, knowing his weaknesses and strengths, that helps you as a defense become better, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the longer you're playing next to somebody, the better you're going to be as a team, and you know what that guy's going to do. And, I remember when Otis Sistrunk played next to me my first couple of years, we made it, we had all these calls that the coaches would teach you, okay? Like if I went upfield and Otis went down, we would call that a trunk. Named after everything had to be named after Otis, of course. And then when like a ski, Otis would go up the field like you're snow skiing, And then we had a trunk ski, we had all these. We made all these calls up, and we used each other's names, because we knew we were going to be there with each other for a long, long time. And so you do. You really get to trust the guy. You get to know him well. You feel for him, and oh my God, yeah. The year was it '77? I hurt my knee in Pittsburgh. It was devastating. It left such a hole because I'd been there so long, and all my boys, come on, fool, you got to get back. But in those days, when you got on injured reserve, you couldn't come back to the next year. So it was like, terrible thing. So yeah, get out there, play with those guys, and and then you don't want to let anybody down. You don't want to ever get hurt. You don't want to ever make a mistake. That was another thing when you play with people for such a long time. You can't let them down by making a mistake. And that was the mental part of pro football is a beautiful thing too, besides all the physical we talked about.
Speaking of the mental, Phil, and we'll get you out of here pretty quick here. Super Bowl against the Vikings, they're knocking on your door in the end zone, and all of a sudden you recognize what's going on, and you look over at John and you say, "We got this." What was going through your head when they came out and you knew exactly what they were going to do?
Well, they had this formation, and what they did when they got in the jam up. It's almost like when everybody remembers when the Chicago Bears put Refrigerator Perry in the backfield. Okay, what are they going to do? They're going to have that big old hog block. They have like two plays. Well, the Vikings actually had that before Chicago did. And they would take out their wide receivers and they would bring in these offensive tackles. So they would actually have 4 offensive tackles on the field. And they were big. And when they did that, we called it jumbo. But I studied it, and all they did was 2 plays, off guard and off tackle. And they just, tried to run behind the big guys. So we had this thing, and when they came in jumbo, we would send in 2 more linebackers, and they put me down on the offensive tackle. Now, I'm a little quicker than, let's say, our defensive end. So we had a thing called jumbo pinch, and we shot the quicker linebackers right down. And that's what we did. So I looked at Madden when they sent in the big tackles. I said, Coach, we got them where we want them. And I said that because I knew we did. I knew we could stop them. And Monty Johnson called jumbo pitch, and I hit that hole so quick, and I saw Tarkenton sticking that ball into McClanahan, and my helmet went right in there with the ball. And the ball came out, and I knew he fumbled, and I just pinned his arms next to him so he couldn't recover it. And Willie Hall recovered it, and 98 yards later, we got 7 points, and they don't have any. So it was a big play, and, I studied it. I was coached well. Don Shinnick, great linebacker coach, told us, he gave us a lot of good clues like that. So I knew we had them where we wanted them. It turned out great.
Oh, man.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
That's gold.
That gives me goosebumps, Phil.
That's
gold,
Phil. That's gold.
I love you guys. I love the nation. What do you guys call your show?
Raiders fan radio. Raiders fan radio.
Raiders fan radio. Very nice. Very nice.
Yep.
You go around the whole country. Everybody hears you.
Yeah, it's a podcast, and so we're recording now, and then we'll edit it up and then post it on the internet, and then it's listened worldwide. We got people from Denmark and Philippines and Germany. We got this Italian guy writing us right now emails. He can barely speak English, but it's pretty cool. And just the internet today, right? The technology is pretty amazing, I mean, you're in Reno, I'm in Oregon, Murf's in Tennessee, and we're having a conversation about the Raiders from the 70s. It's pretty pretty surreal.
That's great. That's great. Well, I really like your show, guys. You call me whenever you want. And I want to say hello to the nation out there. And hopefully with John Gruden coming back and all our guys getting a year older and a year smarter, maybe next year could be our year. I'd love to be in Reno next year getting ready to see our boys playing in this game.
Well, you'll only be in Reno 2 more years for Super Bowls, right? Because next thing you know, you'll be in Vegas and starting in 2020, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. So I think we have 2 more years in Oakland, and then we go 2020 in Vegas, and that would be really cool, man. How about that? We go to Vegas, and then they always give whenever
the stadium,
the stadium, they give them a Super Bowl, like Minnesota. So we'll have the Super Bowl in Vegas, and the Raiders in it.
Oh my gosh!
That's goosebumps. That's goosebumps right there.
Yeah.
All right, great. Phil. Well, hey, we appreciate you coming on the show. I feel like I can talk to you forever, but I want to get you out of here. Again, go to the Phil Villapiano for the Hall of Fame on Facebook. Trying to get him in there. His daughter Andrea is running a great campaign there. And Phil, thank you for all your time playing with the Raiders and supporting the Raiders afterwards. And more importantly than that, all your charity work that you're doing. You're a great guy, Phil. So appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you, guys. Hey, I'm glad you had me on, and good luck to you two guys. Keep your show going. And let me tell the nation again. Nation, next year, baby. Just win, baby.
That was incredible. Like hearing you bring up about Uncle Murf, my Uncle Murf, your dad's best friend, and those were the two guys that really imprinted Raiders fandom on me as a child. And hearing the city where Murf lived, and hearing the guy that was one of his favorite players, Villapiano was one of his, by far his favorites. And like just hearing the name, like I'm immediately, my Uncle Murf passed away a handful of years ago now, so he's been gone for a while. But like hearing him say the name Villapiano, like I just remember they would always refer to him as Villapiano, and like just and like be like Villapiano, just and like so to talk to that guy. I'm awash with emotion. I'm not trying to be cheesy about this, but I'm like for real. Like
it's surreal, isn't it? It's a little surreal.
It blows my freaking mind, man, that we just talked to one of the guys that imprinted them with the Raiders, and then they turned and then did it to us. And to have a conversation with that, to like go full circle like that, and especially as gracious as he was, as humorous as he was, like no wonder they freaking loved him. No wonder. Like how do you not? And then the guy goes out on the field and balls out and wins championships too. Like, how are you not a fan? Like, it's crystal clear to me why those guys in the 70s loved the Raiders, loved players like Phil, and that passion just, trickled down from them then to us. And you know what else is funny too? Is that I'm almost thankful that we had to rely on their stories to understand what that mystique and that was about. We've kind of lost a little bit of the passed down story nature in society because of the way that the internet is. And look, I'm not a get off my lawn kind of guy. I embrace technology. We do a podcast, for crying out loud. But that whole thing of like my Uncle Murf or your dad holding court in the living room during a football game at halftime or after a game is over and telling stories about what things used to be like and what the Raiders were like and what they meant and how they played and all that is gone now. Because if you want to know about the 70s Raiders, you just Google it. You can see all the stuff you want. And so, I don't know. I know I'm kind of rambling at this point, but it was just, Sonny, that was amazing.
You're full on fanboy mode.
I am in full on fanboy mode. That was incredible. And, and to hear him, we've done this show, and you and I have been Raiders fans for a long time. And we've talked a lot about the Sea of Hands game. And we've talked a lot about the Immaculate Deception and the Rob Lytle non-fumble and all that. To hear somebody just bring it up firsthand that's right there, experience this stuff, like to experience that play in the Super Bowl, like it just.
No, that was cool, man. I mean,
we're
Raider fans at heart, and I think, we talk about the Raiders a lot, and we talk about blah 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 blah, and and then even prior to the interview, we were like, all right, what are we going to talk to Phil about? Let's make sure it's professional and all that, and let's not try to go uber fanboy, but we're fans of the Raiders, man, and to talk to one of the guys who I mean, full circle, man, like up in heaven, my dad and your uncle are sitting there going, look at that, our boys are talking to old Phil. And that's the cool thing about sports is that it transcends life sometimes, and it's just a super cool thing, and I'm not going to pretend I'm not a Raiders fanboy, and I'm not going to pretend that it was super difficult talking to Phil, trying to keep it professional and, ask him questions, and I just want to be like, oh, Phil, talk to me,
I know, I just want to gush. And I think that I've been holding back that gush the whole interview, so now it's just got to flow, man. I'm
full on gush mode,
crap,
but I guess the cool thing is they're just people. I mean, they're just guys who played a game and did it at a high level and got to play it and represent the Shield and represent the Raiders. And how about that story with Davis, man, where Davis calls him up, asks him what his weight is, because Davis was saying, yeah, Phil's at 230, but I'll double check real quick. Asks him what his weight was, ask him how his knee was, asks him, how Bob Chandler would fit in with the Raiders, and says, thanks, I just traded you for him. Like, talk about freaking cutthroat. Like, holy crap. That was some crazy insight into how Davis did things. And then for Phil to be like, that was a business move. It's just what it was, and yeah, just
he's
all
a
around,
stand-up guy,
cool.
man. He gets it. You know what I mean? He just gets it. He gets the business angle of it. He gets obviously the playing portion of it. He gets the perspective. He just gets it. And you know what? You said something about that they're just guys, and that's true. And look, I'm not that delusional about it. Sitting here as a 44-year-old man. But what I will say though to that point is that when those stories were being told to me as a kid,
they were
they really were legendary, and they really were like my superheroes. Like, and I'm a superhero guy. I like comic books and I like those movies and all that. But more than anybody, the Snake and Ghost and you know what I mean, and the Soul Patrol and Foo and Mad Stork and Sistrunk from Mars, and like those were my superheroes. Like those were, you know what I mean? More than I coveted comic books, it was my football cards. Like those were the Raiders of the 70s were literally legendary. And so now
those are the guys that you're playing football on the playground with. You're like,
yes.
I'm Kenny Stabler right now, or I'm Fred
Yes.
Blitnikoff right now, or I'm Foo right now. You know?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. Is that, and so that, like now as a grown man and with a family and everything, I look back on it and like I understand the perspective of it that yes, they're just men and they're doing something that they love, and that happens to be what they do for their job, and you know,
channel your 8-year-old boy.
But yes, that's the thing though, is that
your
it
8-year-old
kicks,
self. Yeah.
yes, it kicks you all the way back to what it felt like when I was a kid, and that's if you could package that, we'd all be billionaires. You know what I mean? Like it's just that
you
was.
can, Murf. It's called acid. No. But
yeah,
LSD.
that was just amazing. That was great. So we can't thank him enough. Can't thank Andrea enough. This just feel really blessed that he took the time to not only come on our show but to be gracious, and man, what a great storyteller. And so anyways, I'll back off now because it'll start getting creepy, but that was amazing. That was just amazing. I'm blown away. So thanks.
So yeah,
thanks,
so once
Phil.
again, his daughter Andrea, she's on Facebook. She's trying to get Phil into the Hall of Fame. Andrea Villapiano Kelly, she's on Facebook there. Started the Facebook group, Phil Villapiano, Foo for the Hall of Fame. Already up to 2,500 members, which is pretty impressive. And, we're trying to get, actually it's up to 2,500 now. So trying to get Phil in the Hall of Fame, statistically, you could compare him across the board and, does he stack up? Does he not stack up? Whatever. But, it's,
it's here,
the instant Hall of Fame,
Absolutely. And, here's to me stats are funky because it's hard to compare eras because, like Phil said, I mean, the game has changed. Heck, the
context matters.
The position of line. Yes. I mean, look at the position of linebacker. You can't compare what an outside linebacker does today, what Bruce Irvin does today versus what Phil Villapiano did. You can't even.
But look what Villapiano did in the big games, right? That fumble with Minnesota, that started the game, right? I mean,
yes.
Minnesota scores. Raiders are down 7-0. After that turnover, who knows what happens?
Ultimately,
he steps up. I mean,
ultimately, to me, it's this: is that when you look at players to consider them for the Hall of Fame, were they the best at their position in the era in which they played? That is the ultimate, barometer, because you can't compare what Dick Butkus did to what Singletary did to what Ray Lewis did to what Luke Kuechly's doing. You can't do that. So, but what you can do is you could say, all right, was Dick Butkus the best linebacker at his position amongst his peers?
At his time.
Yes. And was Phil Villapiano one of the elite linebackers in the NFL at his position the time when he played? Yes. Absolutely he was. So does that grant him consideration for the Hall of Fame? Heck yeah. And then you start slapping a ring on him, which he obviously has winning that Super Bowl.
Pro Bowler.
4-time Pro Bowlers, and you look at the way that he came up with the big games. I mean, you mentioned the Steelers. Heck, that's why Lynn Swann and John Stallworth are in the Hall of Fame. It's because of what they did in championship games. It's because they have these crazy stats, and they have good stats, but it's not like Jerry Rice kind of numbers. But what he was
one of the fastest linebackers, 225. I mean, that's small. That's running back size.
Yeah,
right now,
nowadays,
right? So,
yeah.
225. Fast, speedy linebacker, kind of, maybe changed the game a little bit for linebackers at that point in time, for being such a small, fast guy. But you can't take away 4-time Pro Bowler and Super Bowl champion. Like that's strong. That's strong, man.
Yeah, I mean, we're biased. I mean, we're gonna, we're biased. But I think that even when you look at it objectively, and you take our, silver and black hearts out of our chest and just look at it, I think there's consideration there. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And especially since there's precedence, right? He's been on the ballot before. So I think it's great. I think it's great, and we support it. And so Raider Nation, do your part to go out there and support it. Spread the word, tweet the Hall of Fame, join the Facebook group, whatever you got to do to support guys like Phil. And, one last thing is that guys like Phil are great for Raider Nation. There's a lot of challenges in our fandom over the past couple of years. People are split about the move. People are split about, ownership and the, there's all kinds of reasons to figure out, to point fingers at one another and to try to, judge someone else's fandom. Guys like Phil get it, to me, is that he's a unifier, and that's what it's all about. So support a guy like that because he's a Raider at heart. You know what I mean? And that's what counts. He supports the organization, unapologetically, and I think that's something that we as fans could use to do. Is that doesn't mean that we got to excuse everything. Doesn't mean we have to like everything. Doesn't mean that things are always going to go our way. But I think it is okay to be unapologetically supportive of the Raiders because that's
I'll save that comment. The things he does after the fact, so the Raiders in the 70s partying, blah, 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 blah. We all know about that, and Phil, we didn't ask him about it, but he was the guy who would often set up the extracurricular activities during training camps and stuff like that. Yeah. Right. But it just goes to show you, eventually you mature and you grow up and you can still enjoy a beer and have fun, but you give back, and he said, I liked what he said about how in America or in this country, being an NFL guy gives you a name, and he's chosen to use that name for good things, And I mean, he's tied into the Foundation to Save the Jersey Shore, muscular dystrophy, where he was the national vice president for a while. I think him and Jimmy V were close because they're both Dagos from the Jersey area. 2002, he got the Don't Ever Give Up award. He has the Phil Villapiano Field of Hope Gala, now, and even now, I think Phil's like 68 years old. Even now, he's pushing to, not have kids quit football, but he's just saying play flag football up until the age of 14, which I think is really cool because most of the time you hear, oh, football's bad and blah, 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 blah. But he's not saying that. He's saying the concussion thing is difficult because he watched Snake pass away from that kind of stuff, right? He watched his good buddy suffer and end up dying. So he's not just like blaming the NFL. He's coming up with solutions, which I think is really cool. Him and Nick Buonacani and stuff, So I like that about that. I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, it's important. You can either rally against the dark or you can turn up the light, right? Is what my pastor always says. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so Phil's out there turning up the light, man. That's great. That's great stuff.
Anyway, so once again, Phil, we appreciate you coming on the show. We're going to leave this podcast as just a standalone episode of just the Phil Villapiano conversation. And next week, Murf, we got another big guest coming up. Next couple of weeks, we got some fun stuff coming up as the off season is here, as free agency is right around the corner, and then the draft. After the next couple of weeks, when we have some guests coming on, we'll probably start talking about free agency at that point. And as things are already starting to come into play with Alex Smith leaving the AFC West, and I'm not sure if that makes the Chiefs better or worse, Murph. That'll be a conversation, a fun conversation coming up. We are Raiders Fan Radio. Check us out, RaidersFanRadio.com on Twitter and Facebook, Raiders Fan Radio. And anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can type in Raiders Fan Radio and pull up the show and listen to all of the past episodes and the future episodes. And also we're on YouTube, Murph. If you want to see what we look like and watch us talk, you can go to YouTube and wonder if we're wearing pants or not because you can't see us from the waist down. So, All right, Murph, anything else before we go?
That's it. Enjoy the Super Bowl one way or the other, whether you're hating on the Patriots or you're hating on the Eagles.
Well, Murph, what? Shouldn't you say, I hope you enjoyed the Super Bowl? Because this won't be released till after the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So I hope you guys enjoyed the Super Bowl. I hope you enjoyed watching Tom Brady win number 6. Oh, my gosh, right? So I hope you enjoyed the Super Bowl. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Raiders Fan Radio. Thank you for all your support. Go Raiders, and we will talk to you again soon.
Raider Nation, wherever, forever.
This will be the single biggest event in any of your lives as long as you win. And we want.
Hey, boys and girls, you got Uncle Mosh here from Raiders Fan Radio telling you about DeadPiratesSports.com's latest amazing offer. That's right, Captain Darkside's Treasure Chest Fan Box. They're a welcome idea for all Raider fans. They make a great gift idea. That's something all of us Raiders fans want is more Raiders swag. And where are you going to get better swag than from Captain Darkside's Treasure Chest? These treasure chests include shirts, Raider hats, Raider merchandise, tons and tons of other Raider accessories. Captain Darkside's treasure chests are full of awesome Raider gear. They come in 3 sizes to choose from. They got the small ones, the medium ones, and the large ones. $29.99, $59.99, and $99.99. Infants, kids, and special collector's boxes with autographed player merchandise are also available. And when you buy a fan box, you're automatically entered in a special contest and giveaways for life. You know, like we are Raiders fans for life. Plus, some of these random boxes have gold coins in them. If you get a gold coin in your box, you're an instant winner of cool random Raider gear. As an added bonus, every purchase you will receive in your email all the cool, informative, and latest breaking Raider news from Raiders Fan Radio every month at no additional charge. Go on, sign up, get your hands on Raiders Captain Darkside's treasure chest boxes. DeadPiratesSports.com.